Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side. Doug Billings here today, the day after the Democratic National Convention. Why don't they call it the Commu Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Convention? We're going to work on that. What we saw last night, many of us, the violence, the chaos in the streets, it was done at the convention as well. I'm going to show you how last night should have been Joe Biden's swan song. It should have been a distinguished moment for Joe. Look. Don't care what you think about him personally. Last night was supposed to be his last major address to the nation, barring what he says in his farewell speech in January. Last night was supposed to be it. But the radical left Democrat mob turned on him and rubbed salt in the wounds of the coup d'etat against an American president. All of that and much more. I'll explain it coming up now. Ladies and gentlemen, The Right Side with Doug Billings is upon you. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey everybody, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to do a big shout out for my great friend and one of the best in the business, Mr. Doug Billings. Right side with Doug Billings, right side with Doug Billings. Doug is the future of the airwaves when it comes to independent broadcasters and podcasters. He is the new Rush Limbaugh. He's exactly what America needs right now, looking for honesty, looking for wisdom, looking for truth, looking for patriotism. Listen to Doug Billings at Right Side with Doug Billings. God bless you and God bless America, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are winning. We're winning, winning, winning. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Are you ready?
We are not liberal snowflakes who melt away in the face of tragedy, adversity, and challenge. We are a covenant nation under God, and his divine providence is not dead and it's not gone. It is living within each and every one of you. And you will bring it to life in such a way that the world has never seen before. We never back down. We never give up. We march forward.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Doug Billings with you. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching wherever you are, on X, on Facebook, on Rumble, on YouTube, on my website, DougBillings.us, WorldViewTube.com, and Spreely. We are everywhere. And thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, DougBillings.us, I do want you to head over there. We depend on you to prayerfully consider a recurring monthly donation over there so that we can continue to bring you the program. I never charge you for the truth that you see and the intellectual maturity that you receive from this program. But if you could and decide what is the truth worth to you, head over to DougBillings.us and set up a monthly recurring donation if you would, please. We appreciate it very much. That is where you can help. Last night, Democrat National Convention, Chicago, Illinois, one of the most violent cities in all of America because, quite frankly, it's run by members of the Commu Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. Why do they hold a convention in Chicago? Barack Obama wanted it to be in Chicago, of course. And it highlights exactly what policies like defunding the police and so forth can bring about. Violence, chaos, anarchy, arson, you know the routine. Last night, though, was one thing. And I want to remind you right off the bat of something very substantial that we should all be keeping in mind. I think that the lead that President Trump has is a real lead. It is not fake. It's not contrived. It's not fabricated like everything that you see from the left regarding cackling Kamala, right? Everything that you see, all of the support, enthusiasm that you've seen surrounding her, this tsunami of support that you've seen is fake, and it's demanded by the radical liberal hierarchy. They have called up everyone in the media that works with them, everyone in the social media platforms. You must put forth enthusiasm for Kamala. She's a DEI hire. They can't get rid of her. But last night was one thing, and many of you out there, you see the tsunami of fake enthusiasm, and I know that you get worried. I know that you think, gosh, is Trump really behind Kamala Harris in the polls? How could that be possible? How can it be remotely possible that anybody would think that what we've seen after the 3.5 years of the Harris-Biden regime would be acceptable or beneficial to America going forward? Well, I'm here to tell you, very few people think that. And these polls and so forth that you see for cackling Kamala and Tampon Tim are contrived, fabricated, fake. I'm going to show you why and tell you why in a moment. I want to show you something, though, to bolster you up. I want to show you something that is real and organic, something that is not scheduled, something that is not planned and coordinated by a party infrastructure or a campaign. It is not due to any kind of paid event or paid people to be present. Because, again, there is a well-orchestrated fake array of enthusiasm coming from the radical left. You see it on legacy news, you see it on social media platforms, etc. And I do give credit to the radical left. Absolutely so. They are well organized, and they not only dispense orders to their line level people on the streets, but the people on the streets follow those letters to the letter of the law. And I know that when you see this manufactured enthusiasm everywhere that you look, it seems as if we may be far behind, or Trump might not even be in the game here. We've got to stop doing this. We should be talking about this. And it causes us some angst, and it causes us concern. But I assure you, with every bit of honesty that I have within me, President Trump's support is far and above, greater, wider, deeper than that of cackling Kamala. He is ahead in every major poll that uses decent methodology and doesn't get wrapped up in response bias. Everyone talks about the crowd sizes at both campaigns, and I can understand. Look, I get on media, social media, and I will push the buttons, and I will try to agitate the radical left by pointing out crowd sizes at events and so forth and pointing out how small. But ultimately, that really makes no difference. It's just me teasing them. Crowd size has nothing to do with the success of a campaign or the presidency. What we should be talking about are issues. And when you think about it, the radical left, for the first time in 4 years, have somebody that can actually walk up a flight of stairs without falling down. So, yeah, they're excited about that. They're excited that they can have a rally and have more than just 12 minivans show up. They're not excited about Kamala for Kamala's sake. They're not excited about her intelligence. They're not excited about her past record as a district attorney. They're not excited about any present-day achievements because there are none. Again, she's a DEI candidate who has not won a single primary vote and who has not earned one primary victory on her way to being the nominee of that party. So I'm going to show you something that Cackling Kamala and Tampon Tim cannot do. Something that's organic, spontaneous to a degree, patriotic for sure, and that is not organized by the campaign. It's not organized by wealthy donors. It is real. It is Americana. It is we the people. Take a look at a clip just from a few hours ago. It's up in Howell, Michigan, where Trump is speaking today at a rally. This is the caravan, Trump's caravan, driving through town on the way to the venue. Take a look at this short clip. Let's go, Logan. Clip number 1. That was the tail end of a 4-mile stretch from the airport to the venue. And by all accounts, 40,000 people or so lined the streets. I mean, this is the kind of thing that happens to heroes, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm telling you that desperate members of the radical communist-socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, will post similar videos about Cackling Kamala and Tampon Tim. But you'll notice that there's a huge difference. The huge difference between that video that we just saw of President Trump and his caravan going through Michigan is the dozens upon dozens of thousands of people that show up. You watch closely. If there's a video clip from a radical liberal who videos Kamala's caravan, you'll see 100 to 200 people. 300 people maybe on a good day. Meanwhile, there's 40,000 people here just lining the streets, probably going to be close to 20 or more thousand in the venue tonight, this afternoon. This is organic. It's natural. It's patriotic. Kamala and Tim cannot do this, and they do not represent a lead in the polls. It's look, this morning, President Trump woke up. He's got a 5-point lead nationally, according to reputable polls with good methodology who don't use response bias. Response bias, going to a group of Democrats and saying, hey, who do you think you're going to vote for this year, Kamala or Donald? And of course, they're going to say Kamala because it's a group of Democrats. That's what response bias is. And they don't use methodology to weed out and make the playing field evil. Well, maybe that's a good Freudian slip right there. They don't make the playing field level with regards to honest feedback. So don't become complacent. Don't think that we have this all tied up in a nice, pretty box with a bow on it. We've got a lot of work to do at the local level. We've got to get out and vote. And please consider voting on election day. Rid yourself of the nonsense of voting early. That's not what the founding fathers intended. And when we show up on election day, we make it too big to rig, ladies and gentlemen. So I know that you've been seeing polls. It's been weighing on me. I get a lot of emails, a lot of messages. So I wanted to make sure I addressed that. And since last night was their opening night of their convention, it seemed appropriate to remind you of that. Response bias is a real thing. I want you to be aware of it. I want you to take those polls with a grain of salt and realize what you see at a Trump rally, what you see inside the building and outside. That's the representation of America. That's the way the majority of people feel. And we all know, honestly speaking, there are many more Democrats leaving that commune socialist party and coming over to the right side than there are of these fake people that you see, Republicans for Kamala, on X especially. They'll have these snippets of videos who are paid actors. Well, you know, I'm a lifelong Republican and I have voted for Republican presidents ever since Reagan, but this year I can't take it anymore. I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. It's BS, nonsense. They may be Republicans, maybe, but they're not just all of a sudden voting for Kamala. In all likelihood, they're paid actors. They might not even be any Republican or Democrat affiliation with these. It's fake, ladies and gentlemen. And they continually cascade this down upon us because they feel as if the more you see and hear it, the more you'll believe it. Don't be fooled. We are the majority. There are more people fleeing that commune socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, than we've ever seen before. And one of them is Robert Kennedy Jr. We may see in the next couple of days, I'm being told, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. endorsing President Trump. And yes, Kennedy would be given a key position within the administration, as he probably should be. Now, I don't agree with almost any of his political beliefs, but I would love to have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on this program. And I've invited him today. I put a message out to his people to see if we can make this happen. We shall see. But look, I think, with regards to big pharma and the vaccine mandates and the mask nonsense and all of that was perpetrated upon us during the pandemic, I think RFK Jr. would be great to speak truth to President Trump about that topic and about those surrounding issues, those peripheral issues within the problem that we have with Big Pharma, the World Health Organization, and the Center for Disease Control. I think Kennedy would be a great addition in that regard to give Trump advice. So, yeah, look for that. Look for Robert F. Kennedy in the coming days to endorse Trump. I think it's going to happen. So last night, wow, I mean, so much to think about. So much to think about. I want to go over it with you. What they did to Joe Biden last night, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I know they made it look like a farewell to a hero, but what they did was exactly the opposite. And I'll explain what I mean. Before I go, I want to remind you again, we're having a conference in Branson, Missouri, the Determined Patriotism Conference. And there's a website, determinedpatriotismconference.com. Head over there, grab some tickets. It's September 27th and 28th, coming up next month in Branson, Missouri. If you have not experienced Branson, Missouri, you're missing out. A 2-day event, the 27th and 28th. Top Tier 1 American Patriot podcasters. part motivation, mostly education, and a lot of fun. We're going to have a Branson show on Friday night, have a dinner together on Saturday, and in between, great speeches by great American patriots. Head over to determinedpatriotismconference.com and get your tickets. I will be right back with you, ladies and gentlemen, shoulder to shoulder, as always, right after this break. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that you could change the trajectory of your aging process? Look and feel better, live younger, be more active, less pain when you move around, sleep better, diminish the lines and the wrinkles on your face? Really? This is what I'm telling you. It's possible. You see, low stem cell activity happens when we get older. And it could be causing many of the health problems that some people have in the world today. Because as we get older, we have less stem cell activity, which means we age faster and we heal slower. The secret is a clinically proven and patented phototherapy non-transdermal patch, whose technology is the result of over 90 clinical studies and over 20 years of research. Your healthier life can begin today, and you can discover true age reversal. Age reversal, ladies and gentlemen. Please go to liveyoungerwithdoug.us. Liveyoungerwithdoug.us, ladies and gentlemen. Get over there today. Or if you'd like, text my name, Doug, to 41372. Doug, text it, 41372. And get over to liveyoungerwithdoug.us. Get younger, feel younger. I'm doing it. I'm wearing this patch. I feel great. And so will you. God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield. Electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle, that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
The Right Side with Doug Billings, pointing out the intellectual immaturity of liberals.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. The Right Side with Doug Billings coming to you from smack dab in the middle of the fruited plain in the republic that is America. Last night, the Democratic Communist Socialist National Convention, the Communist Socialist gathering of people who believe that it is fundamentally necessary to transform America away from the divine providence of God and the intent of the founding fathers. And a gathering of people who, because they believe that, cannot and are not patriots. You cannot be an American patriot and believe that America needs to be fundamentally transformed. Thank you very much. We all know who said that first, Barack Obama. Now the floodgates wide open. They're trying to transform us fast as possible away from God, away from the divine providence of God, away from the intent of the founders, so on and so forth. They want to dilute the American identity. They want to weaken us by letting in millions of undocumented and illegal immigrants, and they want to give them the right to vote. This is what they've wanted since day one. I have said this since 2020 when I started this show. The reason they open the borders is because they want these people to vote. And they think that by giving them free stuff, housing, medical attention, health care, education, clothing, food, etc., that they will be more inclined to vote for them. It's bribery for votes. And it's open season on all of them coming across the border. Last night, chaos descends upon Chicago, and their patron demon, chaos, their patron demon, crisis, all right there. And what they did, as I was saying before the break, Joe Biden last night, like him, hate him, or could care less, he should have had a night, ladies and gentlemen, quite frankly, where he was given a chance to say goodbye to the nation in prime time, as was scheduled. Joe Biden was forced out of the presidency, right, of the White House. He was forced out against his will. I don't care how many clips there are of him saying he's stepping down for the good of the country. Nonsense. Nonsense. Ladies and gentlemen, do you honestly believe someone like Joe Biden or someone like Jill Biden would step away from the power of the presidency by themselves voluntarily? Oh, heck no. Heck no. And I'm going to get to Joe and what they did, but can you imagine the rage that must be percolating through Jill Biden for these past 30 days since her husband was forced out? Jill, who loved power more than Joe, in my opinion, at least that's what it looked like every time she was on TV, right there. These last 30 days since the radical left, commune socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, and the hierarchy within that party forced Joe out. And if you don't believe that, or to deny it, if you deny that that was an internal liberal commune socialist coup d'etat, you're either blinded by partisanship or you are plagued by chronic intellectual immaturity. They kicked Joe out of the presidential race. And then last night, and I'm not sure that many of you noticed, but last night they opened up that wound and they rubbed salt in it. Did you notice? Joe Biden was scheduled, ladies and gentlemen, scheduled to give a speech in prime time. For those of you in Raytown, Missouri, prime time is between 8 and 11 p.m. Thank you very much. Prime time speech, Joe Biden scheduled. Promised a slot right then and there in that time frame. Last night I was going, the only real reason I was watching last night was to see Joe's farewell speech. And that's what it was supposed to be. His last farewell, his last major speech to America, barring the one he may make in January when he says goodbye finally to us. But this was definitely one of the last chances Joe was to be given to address the nation. And what did the radical left, commune socialist, formerly known as Democrat hierarchy, do to Joe? They bumped him out of prime time. Open wound, pour salt. In a speech that would likely be his last major chance to address not only his party, but the American people in general. Cackling Kamala, you can count on it, gave the order, bump Joe out of prime time. Let's insert a quartet of people to talk about the murder of human babies, infanticide. Let's get people to talk about that. Let's get people to talk about how we convince America that murder of human babies within their mother's womb is actually health care. Let's get 4 different people to talk about. Let's put them in and bump their time so that Joe gets less time. Kamala Harris and her campaign are responsible for that. I mean, look, ladies and gentlemen, you've watched me for 4 years. You know that I'm no fan of Administrator Biden. But it's obvious what this radical left party does. And I am sick. I don't know about you, but I'm sick of them robbing the meaning of words like joy and happiness. Meanwhile, we're looking at their actions and seeing arson, tyranny, and rioting and looting. Biden had insisted for weeks after that debate that he was not going to step down. Remember? Not going to step down. I'm in this thing. I'm in it to win it. I know I had a bad night, but I'm still in it. But as we know, the radical left, commune socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, from their hierarchy, from the dispatch of the highest elite echelons of that party, dispatched Nancy Pelosi to deal with Administrator Biden and to deliver the message from the hierarchy. You got to step down, Joe. We can make this pleasant or it can be unpleasant. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, threats were made that if he didn't do it, that they would go through with it. If he would not have stepped down, you can better believe they would have invoked the 25th Amendment. Now, again, I'm not a fan of Joe. Don't wish him any personal ill will. Don't get me wrong. Politically, not a fan of his. I certainly did not want Joe to step down. And I'll tell you why. Because I can't bear the thought of Kamala being the first woman president of the United States. Not cackling Kamala. I can't stomach that thought. So stay in there, Joe. Stay in as long as possible, please. So I would not have wanted to see the 25th Amendment. I know there were some Republicans calling for it. Well, if he can't run for re-election, he certainly can't be running and managing the country now. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe hasn't been running and managing the country since 2020. He hasn't been running and managing the country since the first day he stepped into the White House. So don't give me all this nonsense about now wanting the 25th Amendment. Now that we know that that's not a threat anymore, Kamala's going to be the nominee. We're going to see her get that all wrapped up this week. And no, they're not going to insert Michelle Obama. That was never an option, never an option that was considered by serious people. I know it was thrown out by some as kind of comic relief. No, it was never going to happen. Never. But neither Joe nor Jill wanted the 25th Amendment or those other threats that were made against him if he didn't step down to be part of his legacy. So he stepped down on July 21st, and they, of course, PR'd it, right? They public relationed that. They dressed it up and put lipstick on it, made it look like he was doing this all on his free will because he loves America so much that he's no one like Joe Biden, and especially like Jill Biden, voluntarily give up power. Doesn't happen. They were forced out. To say anything to the contrary, again, is blind partisanship or vast, deep and rooted intellectual immaturity. And last night was yet another example of the disrespect that party has shown Joe Biden. Disrespectful to promise him a primetime position and then bump him out of it. And true to form, the radical liberals put on fake smiles. And they talk about joy and happiness. And because so many mention those words and they talk about the heroics of Joe and his long, illustrious career, and I listen to those words and I remember those words like you do, joy, happiness. And I know what those words mean. And then, as I'm remembering those words, I'm looking at the actions of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and the rest of the Commu Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. Their words, all smiles about Joe and all accolades last night, right? Their words, what looked to be and sounded like a hero's farewell. Accolades, praise, joy for Joe. But when you look at their actions, a coup d'etat. Washed up, disrespected, bumped out of prime time, silenced as much as possible. Subtle and maybe unnoticeable to most, but I'm here to tell you that's what happened. In reality, what we witnessed last night was the ultimate in humiliation for Joe. A ritual, really, that was designed on purpose to seem like a moment of honor and respect, but in reality was a ritual of humiliation. And it never ceases to amaze me, the depths and the depravity to which these people on the left can go, even towards those on their side. And it's done out of hate and jealousy, of course. It's also done to just silence and diminish Joe Biden as much as possible, as quickly as possible. We must diminish him. Fine, diminish him. His record is Kamala's record. His administration is Kamala's administration. The chaos and crisis that you think are Joe's are Kamala's, and now Tim's. They took the nomination away from him, then they booted him completely off the stage of prime time. It is, again, it never ceases to amaze me, this coalition of immorality, the heartless, gutless, self-righteous, purposefully chaotic and crisis-ridden Communist Socialist Party. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm up against another break. Hey, DougBillings.us. I've mentioned that before. Please do go over to DougBillings.us and set up a monthly recurring donation so that I can continue to bring you this program, please. There it is, a beautiful redesigned website with a lot of things to check out over there, stores and health products and so forth, the newsletter, the Billings report, but primarily that donate tab. If you click on that, it's fairly intuitive. Even if you're from Raytown, Missouri, you can figure this out. And you can set up a monthly recurring donation to the program so that I can continue to bring it to you free of charge. You'll notice I never charge you for it, but I do ask for some help. So just consider, what is the truth worth to you, and head over to DougBillings.us. All right. I will be right back after you take this wonderful, joyful, and happy trip into capitalism. Stay with me. I'll be right back. Cheers.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHousebg.com. We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com.
The Right Side with Doug Billings, coming to you from the fruited plains of America.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. All right. Hey, by the way, if you want to get in on this conversation and talk about the DNC and about what they've done to Joe, or about the trajectory of both campaigns, feel free to give me a call. Opening up the phone lines, 901-316-8404. 901-316-8404. Would love to be able to talk with you about all or any of this, the topics of the day. So, as you heard prior to the break, now you can say, never let it be said that Doug Billings didn't give Joe a chance and didn't say something nice about Administrator Biden. These last 3.5 years, I've not had a lot of good things to say about the guy because his policies, platform, and politics have been nothing but designed in purposeful chaos and crisis. And so now all of that is on the shoulders, and the burden of that is all with the campaign of crackling, cackling Kamala. That's all her baggage now. She's got to own it. She does own it. So no more jokes about Joe Biden after what they did to him last night. Joe's off into the sunset now. Lame duck presidency. I'm sure he may come up in the news from time to time between now and November, certainly before January. But he's out, and they forced him out. And they rubbed salt in the wounds last night. Not noticeable, but not spoken about, that's for sure, on the legacy media. And I'm sure many of you might not have had all of this dawn on you until I've told you this afternoon. But they did. They bumped him out of prime time. They wanted to diminish him as much as possible, all by the design of Kamala Harris and her campaign. So disrespected, joked about, diminished, all of that last night. That was the major takeaway from the Democrat National Convention. And another liberal who got a fair amount of attention last night was the governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear. The topic was abortion, specifically abortion due to rape. Now, before I go into that in detail, let me just remind you that President Trump has come out and said that abortion would be permissible in the case of rape and if the mother's life is in danger. He and J.D. Vance have spoken about this. They have a certain wish list that they would like to have with regards to the value and the sanctity of human life. And then they have something separate, which is what their winning approach in their mind is, acting and talking about this within the realm of reality about abortion and understanding the human dynamics within all of it that's made up. And we, as Republicans, I grant you this, we could rebrand our approach to the abortion issue and be better for it. Life by itself, just life, human life, ladies and gentlemen, it's always a winner for us. Every single time and twice on Sundays, it's always a winning issue for us. But Governor Beshear last night from Kentucky took J.D. Vance comments out of context, claiming that Vance said that pregnancy from rape is an inconvenience. Well, that's out of context. It's not what Vance meant, and it's not what he meant to say, or rather what he implied. What I want to talk about as we begin to go into some phone calls and close out the program today, I want to talk about how I believe life is a winning issue for us. I can't convey in human words how abhorrent, how gruesome it would be to have to live through the ordeal of a rape. I can't imagine it. I don't have the words to describe the horror of that, whether that rape was done by a stranger or a member of your family. And I know those circumstances happen in rare circumstances. When we take rape and the life of a mother in terms of overall abortion statistics, 0.02% of people have pregnancies from rape, and just slightly fewer have issues with life of mother versus life of baby issues during a pregnancy. So it's a very small minority, but that does not diminish. I do not say that to diminish anyone's pain or suffering with regards to having to live through those nightmares. Last night during the convention, there was a beautiful young woman who came up to the stage and bravely shared her story of being raped by her father. And when she was a child, and how that abuse had continued through much of her childhood. It's one of the most horrific stories that I can imagine. And again, I tip my hat to that wonderful, beautiful lady who took the stage and was brave enough to talk about that story. And that it's just, I can't imagine it. So I honor her struggle, her story, and my heart goes out to her. And I have no way of imagining, I have no way to comprehend really what her feelings are about all of that, or anyone who goes through that. So from the very beginning, I admit all of that. But I know this also. Every human life has the divine spark of God within it. Every human life is sacred. And it's my prayer that one day the majority of people within this republic who already believe that will be able to prayerfully and sincerely and with empathy and love be able to express that even in the most abhorrent and evil circumstances, such as rape, that disgusting, unholy, and evil act of rape, even in that, we cannot vanquish God's divine presence and divine spirit from the life that is conceived in that moment. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of prayer and effort. It takes a lot of faith. It takes a lot of love and empathy to get to that point. But that is my prayer, that one day we have such a culture of life that even during the ashes and the destruction of adversity and challenge and tragedy and evil that is all compassing around that horrible crime of rape, that maybe just one day we will be brave and holy and worthy enough to say, I'm not going to let sin or anyone remove the sanctity and dignity of human life, of any human life, no matter how it is conceived. So we, as conservative Republicans, need to rebrand ourselves around that kind of messaging and that kind of empathy and love for women and holding men accountable. Now, not all men run away, but many do from pregnancies, right? We need to hold men accountable. We need to help them too, though, cope and understand that there's always options. There's lines of people who want to adopt a baby. And I don't pretend for a moment to understand the filthy, dirty feeling that someone must have if they're raped and have to carry a child. I leave that on the table. I have no idea. All I know is that I believe that any human life, no matter how it is conceived, has the divine spark of God within it. And we need to find a way to get to that and to love that. Detest, punish, and do away with the crime, but to love the result. And we've got a lot of work to do. And those are my feelings. I think that the Republican Party, I think that's a winning approach. I think that's love. I think that's empathy. I think that's accountability. We've got to be able to have some people that can speak to this with passion and be articulate about this and not back down and feel as if it's a loser of a topic for us, that we can't win, that we don't have somehow the moral high ground. We do have the moral high ground with this issue especially. Ladies and gentlemen, the Republican conservative movement in this country is now the only major political movement and party that aligns itself with God. I mean, I understand that the Republican Party is not perfect, because it is run by imperfect human beings, but at least we aspire to the divine providence of God. At least we aspire to the sanctity of human life. At least we try to pursue the intent of the founding fathers. The radical left communist socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, cannot claim any of those things and have absolutely no moral high ground from which to speak on this topic or almost any other topic. Again, as I said towards the beginning of the program, you cannot be an American patriot and believe that America needs to be fundamentally transformed. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I know we've got David on the line from Florida. David, hang with me. I'm going to take a break, and we're going to come right back with the phone calls. Ladies and gentlemen, the lines are open, 901-316-8404. 901-316-8404. Coming right back with your phone calls after you take this incredible trip into capitalism. And before you go, DougBillings.us. That's your homework. Not right now. Not now. Wait till after the show. DougBillings.us. Ladies and gentlemen, head over to my new website and prayerfully consider setting up a monthly recurring donation so that I can continue to bring you this program free of charge. I'll be right back after this. Cheers.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now. And we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview. We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com.
Doug Billings reminding you that conservatives are better looking than liberals.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Doug Billings with you here, the right side. And yes, indeed, we are in this thing together. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Shoulder to shoulder, we stand together to try to reclaim the republic back to the divine providence of God and the intent of the founding fathers. We see so often examples of the radical left who feel that we need to transform ourselves away from all of that. Well, enough is enough. We're not going to allow that to happen. And we talk a lot about this, and I understand we sometimes feel overwhelmed because the radical left is a well-organized machine. It seems from a day-to-day basis that they may be winning, or they may have the upper hand, or they may have the momentum. They do not. Nothing that comes from purposeful chaos and purposeful crisis has the moral high ground. Nothing that does those things has a momentum. So I'll just, again, as we begin to go to the phone lines here in just a second, want to remind you and end up where I began today. There are every good reason to believe, lots of reasons to believe, and hopeful reasons that we will see this thing through. Trump today, 5 points ahead of Kamala on a national regulated methodology, a poll that uses good methodology, that isn't immersed in response bias. We've got that. We've got organic, natural, unplanned, spontaneous crowds that show up to line the streets, to go to these events. And we see the good in people, and we see the chaos that is produced only by the radical liberal left. So have faith and hope in all of that. We will prevail. So, okay. David in Florida, line number one. The phone lines, ladies and gentlemen, 901-316-8404. David in Florida. Welcome to the right side, David.
Hi, Doug. Nice to talk to you again. I called in last week. How are you?
I am good. Thanks. Glad to have you back, David.
Hey, you touched on last week when I called in, you said that I touched on a couple of your pet peeves or soapboxes, if you will. Well, what you were just talking about as far as putting your heart when it comes to the issue of abortion, that's one of my pet peeves. That's one of my soapboxes. Mm-hmm. And, it's amazing. In my view, life is a gift from the Lord, and it is His to take, not ours. And I would urge people out there, never put yourself in a position where you decide that you are God and you are going to decide what happens with the life that's inside of you. And like you said, Doug, I can't begin to imagine the dirty feelings and the and the betrayal and all of the horrible things that would go along with a rape, or incest or anything like that. That speaks for itself. But on another note, God is in the business of taking bad things and turning them into good. That's what he specializes in, and we need to allow him to do that. And I would challenge anyone to do an online search of prominent people in our society that have been a product of rape. And as a matter of fact, even though I don't agree with a lot of his political perspectives, but even Jesse Jackson is a product of rape. And how many other people that we listen to that we're glad that they're here, are a product of rape and of very bad circumstances, and their mother decided to keep them and bring them through anyway, regardless of the horrible, circumstances, and they became very prominent, good people. And again, I encourage listeners to go ahead and Google or whatever search engine you use. Look up stories of women who decided to keep that innocent little life that's inside of them, and that those people grew up to be an intense blessing to their family and to others. So you never know what plans the Lord has for a little life. So don't play God with that little life that's inside of you, regardless of the circumstance, and pray that you have the strength and fortitude to make that decision. And that's something that's near and dear to my heart. Because,
well said. Yep.
And like I said, anybody that's listening, go ahead, do a search on your own. Search of what prominent, famous actors or people in political realms were a product of rape or whatnot. I think you'll be surprised. So
David, well met. Listen, that means a lot to me. I understand that. Obviously, I can tell by your voice, you have a sense of passion and deep conviction and faith about that, and I commend you for sharing it. I couldn't agree more. There's a friend of mine actually in Oklahoma, in the Tulsa area, I believe. His name is Mark Sherwood, Dr. Mark Sherwood, product of a rape. And as a doctor, he has treated thousands upon probably hundreds of thousands of people throughout his career, especially during the COVID pandemic, and got them on the right track with regards to that, by the way, not the Kookville scare tactics that were thrown at us from the radical left, but a man who has impacted lives. It reminds me of my favorite movie of all time is It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. I watch it probably 6 times between Thanksgiving and Christmas every year. And, it's the story about what would the world be like if I had not been born. And, George Bailey and all of that. In the beginning of this movie, one of the most classic lines, in my opinion, of any movie. And for those of you who have seen It's a Wonderful Life, at the beginning of the movie, God showing up in a cluster of stars, God is having a conversation with St. Joseph, and they're trying to decide. George Bailey is having this crisis on Earth. They're trying to decide what angel they're going to send down, what guardian angel. So they call Clarence, and Clarence, God says, Clarence, there's a man on Earth. He's in crisis. Oh, Clarence says, what's the matter? Is he sick? And God, in a moment of wisdom in Hollywood writing, says, no, worse. He's discouraged. And that's how we feel. We get discouraged so easily in life, and we feel as if there's no hope and there's not a better alternative ahead of us. There always is. I'm here to tell you, look, if we were to line up people who have made mistakes and had tragedy happen in life, I would be among some of you in the first of that line. And I can tell you that out of the ash heap of tragedy, adversity, and challenge, blessing is there waiting to be born. Every time. Every time. And it takes sometimes the vantage point of hindsight to see that. But if we can get, as a conservative movement, a rebranding and begin to talk about abortion and life in terms that are filled with empathy and love and understanding, doing a better job than what we do now about the passion that we have for that, even out of something as horrible as a rape, how life can always be found to be wonderful. All right. So I appreciate you, David, out there in Florida. Thank you very much. Well met. We have also Paul in Kentucky. Paul, welcome to The Right Side.
Hey, Doug, thank you so much. First time caller. I listened to you quite often since the last was there, and one of my favorite congressmen that held the show before at 6 with Brandon there. But I called just, there's a group out there calling themselves evangelical Christians for Kamala Harris. But what Christian, born again, that's confessed their sin and turned from sin, and God admit they were sinner in need of a Savior, would vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, someone that wants to kill babies and someone that wants to take your children away from the legal rights of their parents in their state and have a sex change?
Yeah.
So you have to hate America and hate your children to vote for such as that. And I just wanted to know your thoughts and comments on that. Yeah, I don't care if it's Billy Graham's granddaughter, who it is supporting such junk as that. I don't think they're born-again Christians. Anybody would support such as that. And thank
Paul,
you, Doug, for all your hard work.
Well, you're welcome, and thanks. I'm glad. I hope you call back from time to time. It's good to have you out there, and it does my heart good to know that people like you are out there. Love Kentucky, by the way. All of my best to the people in the Bluegrass State. Love that place. Yeah, that's I agree with you. And those are, I've said this before. I have we all have our Christian faiths and our perspectives and so forth. I have a friend by the name of Father Jim Altman who coined this phrase. I use it often, but he's the one who said it first. And he was talking about Catholics, but Christians in general, right? And he said, you can't be a Christian and be a Democrat. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. I agree with it. You can't be evangelical. You can't be a Christian. Under that umbrella, Catholics, evangelicals, Lutherans, whatever, you can't be a Democrat. The policies, the platforms, and the politics of that party are directly opposed to what it is to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. You cannot do it. You cannot justify it, and you can't accomplish it. It's impossible. This radical left, I call them the Commu-Socialist Party because they've blended communism and socialism together. They are not a pro-America political party. They're not a pro-God political party. They're a coalition of immorality. Evidence of the obvious is sufficient. Paul, I could not agree with you any more. I'll give you the final say. Or maybe he hung up. Did he hang up? Okay. Well, Paul in Kentucky, that's my thought. And I agree with you. I align with that completely. I think, look, here's this. You think you identify, and again, let me say this first. The Republican Party is not perfect. There is no organization on earth, whether it's a church organization or whether it's a political organization or anything in between. Anything run, led, and managed by human beings is not perfect. But we have in front of us certain choices that we can make that help us align with what we know to be truth. And for those of us who believe in God and believe in Jesus and believe in the salvation that Jesus offered us, we believe that we can make certain choices and decisions that help us along the way to build up the kingdom of heaven on earth, to build up what we think the will of God might be. Now, the radical left hears, they watch this program. When I say those words, their heads explode. They can't wrap their heads around that. It doesn't make any sense to them. They have actually, the Democratic Commu-Socialist Party has literally eliminated, taken off, removed God from their party platform. You all remember that. You know that, right? That's not just me saying it. That is a matter of record. God off the platform, not anymore part of our party. And then you look at what they put forth. And to Paul's point in Kentucky, let me talk about the fiction that is gender misappropriation. The radical left believes that somehow people can be misappropriated their gender. Like a boy thinks that he should be a girl and vice versa. That's a fiction, ladies and gentlemen. That is a mental illness. It is not reality. And the radical left liberal coalition of immorality would dare say that they will take children away from their parents to mutilate their genitalia, which is what transgenderism is. And I know it's grotesque to hear those words, but that's what needs to be said. It's the truth. And they will take the children away from the parents and say, okay, Johnny, okay, Sarah, your pathway to joy and happiness, the words that they've co-opted and taken away from us as far as what they really mean. If you want joy and happiness, Johnny, we're going to help you because you will be allowed to mutilate your genitalia. That will bring you joy and happiness. Can you imagine something as unholy and evil as that? Yet that is what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz represents. And so, folks, we've got a decision to make. You might not think Trump's tweets are nice, and you might not like his personality, we've got a big choice to make here as far as what is the right path for America. Listen, I love it. Thanks for the callers. I'll be back every Monday through Friday right here, 5 to 6 o'clock. Please, wherever you're watching, subscribe to me, follow me so that you get access to this program, and share the program to your friends and on social media. God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. Believe it for the Republic. Cheers.